What's up, everybody? This is Dan Thompson from AroundTheAssociation.com and the Around the Association podcast. And this is my mailbag edition. Yes, I'm a few days late with the mailbag, but I didn't forget about all the people who left comments and questions about the NBA. I will be better to it this week. It's been kind of a busy week. The NBA draft is less than about 8 days away in Brooklyn on next Thursday night. So let's get to the mailbag. A lot of people ask me questions about different topics around the NBA. So let's get to Jonathan Goldsmith's question. We'll start with him first. I saw someone talk about what it would take for the Hornets to get Russ and Clay to the Hornets. So what are your thoughts? Well, the best way to get that question answered is picking up a copy of 2K19 and doing a fantasy draft, because there's possibly no possible way the Hornets are ever going to require not just Russell Westbrook, but Klay Thompson, or both at the same time. Russell Westbrook is locked into a supermax deal with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Thunder have built their franchise around the two-time triple-double man, the single-season triple-double king in Russell Westbrook. So I don't see the Thunder even going off Russell Westbrook. They're trying to build a championship around him. Now, the chances in the situation of Klay Thompson is a free agent next summer. He says he might take less money to re-sign in in Golden State. We'll see that when that time gets here, because Klay Thompson is one of those guys that could make a lot of money, and turning down an excess amount of money could be a problem in the future. I don't know what his decision would be, but his decision in signing would be the ultimate future of the Golden State Warriors going forward. If Thompson decides to take less money and protect the dynasty, that means, with Draymond Green saying on the day of the parade that, he wouldn't sign a supermax deal, which would come to believe that either A, he wants to leave Oakland, or B, he would take less money to keep everybody together, and the money doesn't matter. We'll see what Klay Thompson thinks this summer, because Draymond Green is the following summer after that. Next question from Mike Patton. Where does Carmelo Anthony play next season if he's not in Oklahoma City? Well, Carmelo Anthony has a player option that is I think it was almost 20, in excess between $25 and $27 million, maybe even 28. I can't remember the exact number offhand. But in Carmelo Anthony's case, where does he see being fit? If the Thunder can't move him, I don't know if a buyout's going to happen. I can see Carmelo being in a situation that if, let's just say, LeBron James decides to leave Cleveland, that maybe the Thunder come calling with Cleveland for maybe Kevin Love, and then Dan Gilbert can buy out the Carmelo contract since there's only 1 year left on the deal, and let Carmelo sign anywhere. So let's say devil advocate and the Thunder decide to buy him out. Where do you see Carmelo Anthony going? I can see him being in Houston. The Rockets are missing Trevor Ariza, who's an impending free agent, and Ariza said he'd take less money to play in Golden State. So I can see Carmelo as a fit out there. Hey, if LeBron is headed out to LA, play for the Lakers, why not Carmelo take the mid-level exception and go out there and become a hired gun out in LA? Other teams that could be a nice fit for Carmelo outside of those two teams, you would need a team that would need a real big-time scorer, a guy that's willing to let the offense run through him. Hey, what about the Utah Jazz? The Jazz and Donovan Mitchell recruiting Paul George, and that's a good buddy of Donovan Mitchell, is Paul George. Why not try to get Carmelo Anthony out in Utah? That'd be an interesting fit. Or Carmelo Anthony in Portland. Portland does need a scorer from the wing, a guy that that doesn't mind scoring with Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum not on, or being that another option. Because, like I said, with Westbrook, with Anthony, he played third fiddle to Russell Westbrook and Paul George this year. So playing third fiddle to CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard might be up his alley. If you're looking to be a pure scorer someplace that can use him, the only other team I can think of off the top of my head that Carmelo would be a good fit for and that would work offhand, maybe even the team that passed up on him in the draft his rookie season, and that'd be the Detroit Pistons. A team that could use a guy like Carmelo to be another wing scorer, because Stanley Johnson is only a defensive-minded player. And, you add a guy who can hit from the perimeter and also play a little power forward when Blake Griffin is off the floor. So there's a couple places for Carmelo Anthony that can play next season. But I really would think that Houston and the Lakers would be 1-2 on the option, depending on where LeBron James signs or where Chris Paul ends up. Christopher Morrison's question was, will this year's draft translate into the modern-day NBA, considering all the big men in the draft? Well, the modern-day NBA nowadays is really not a big man-friendly game, because you got to have versatility. The good thing about a lot of these guys in the class is that you look at Marvin Bagley, a guy who does have range out to 18 feet, reminds me a lot of Chris Bosh. Jaren Jackson actually was a very solid 3-point shooter if he didn't take that many, and he projects to me to be like a better version of Serge Ibaka. We're talking Oklahoma City Serge Ibaka, not Toronto or Orlando Serge Ibaka. We're talking the Thunder Ibaka that could fly around the rim and change games defensively. Wendell Carter actually was a good 3-point shooter at Duke. He didn't take that many attempts, but you know the stroke is there. And then we saw Mohamed Bamba in the workouts. Bamba's changed his shooting stroke, fixed the way he shoots the basketball, and you can see in the videos this guy is knocking down 3-pointers. So I think the translation for a lot of these big guys in the draft, especially going into the lottery, the major names, I think they'll be fine. These guys are all athletic enough to play the run up and down, and I think they can be solid enough shooters. I don't know about elite shooters, but they'll be solid enough to transition into this modern day game. And we haven't even mentioned DeAndre Ayton, who does have range out to the 3-point line. He's the best big man in this draft as well, too. My main man, L.A. Brocious, his question is, hey, Danny, besides LeBron, who do you see yourself being the biggest free agent ad, and where does he go? Well, Paul George is number 2 on the list. Paul George is the guy that could be a needle changer. Lakers, Houston, OKC are the three teams for Paul George. Even Philadelphia is in the mix. But with Philadelphia and free agent, it all depends on now who is the GM since Brian Colangelo is out the door. And what I've been hearing since the recording of this podcast is that a lot of GMs around the league, a lot of league personnel think Paul George is going to be signed for the 1-year deal and give this one more shot for Russell Westbrook. And then after next season, guess what? He is an unrestricted free agent, and more teams have the ability to offer the max because a lot of these guys get out of those contracts that were offered during the first year of spending, the year I call Festivus that happened 3 years ago when everybody and their mother was handing out contracts. The same year Timothy Mozgov and Luol Deng got those huge contracts, so a lot of those contracts come off the books, and these teams will get some salary cap space back. Another tag team off of Paul George, Ben Sellers III asks, where does Paul George go, and where does he pair another superstar? Well, like I said, if he goes back to LA, it's going to be more likely LeBron James. If the James is not there, maybe the Lakers go out and acquire a guy like DeMarcus Cousins, or if the Lakers just sign Paul George and use their money next summer when Kawhi Leonard, who is a potential free agent, if he decides to walk away from over $200 million, can try to lure the LA kid back home to go play with Paul George. If he goes to Houston, of course, he's going to partner with James Harden. Not sure if Chris Paul would be back, but if they get the three of them together and somehow find the cap space, hey, it's a great fixture. Now, I'm going to answer the question about LeBron James in this future later because the Houston Rockets have been paired with LeBron James as well as Paul George. On paper, they can't sign either one of those two guys because they had the Chris Paul cap hold, which is over $35 million, and they have to deal with the fact of Clint Capella being a restricted free agent. Now, unless some team, or I call an angel investor, wants to invest in Ryan Anderson with 2 years and almost over $40 million in salary cap space, and they want to take and give Daryl Morey a bone and take this contract off his hands, it'll be very unlikely that you'll see another major star in Houston unless they move Ryan Anderson, renounce everybody off the roster, and potentially even trade Eric Gordon to get the third cap space for somebody else to go forward. Question from Mario Drake: Is it better for the Cavs to keep LeBron James and Kevin Love to bring actual talent and youth by bringing Colin Sexton, or we better to blow up the team and gather draft picks? Well, here's the thing. LeBron James will be 34 years old this year. And the one thing we learned about 33-year-old LeBron is that he's outperformed anybody that's been at his age level in the history of the NBA. Now, will LeBron keep this up? There's got to be a situation where Father Time will catch up with LeBron James. Father Time is like the internet. It's undefeated. It never loses. We thought Kobe Bryant would be playing forever until he caught the Achilles injury. When he caught the Achilles injury, Kobe was never the same player. Dirk had his injury, and he never was the same player after his injury. It happened late in his career. Unfortunately, Father Time will catch up with LeBron James. It's just that when will it catch up with LeBron James? Kevin Love has 1 year left with a player option next year, and who knows if Kevin Love even returns and signs long term? Because think about it, Kevin Love is a West Coast guy. I can see Kevin Love ending up in L.A. I can see him ending up in Portland. Those are maybe the Lakers, even if the Lakers have space next summer. I can see Kevin Love make a return trip back home, and another team that could be in the mix could be the Phoenix Suns, depending on what they do in the draft. Can you imagine if they draft DeAndre Ayton and they have a solid season, and Kevin Love is on the board since he's a West Coast guy, can you imagine Devin Booker, Kevin Love, DeAndre Ayton, Josh Jackson, and hey, if they get back in the first round, in that lottery pick, maybe Trae Young? That would be some really, really interesting basketball. Trae Young, Luka Doncic, if that is the case out there. So, for me, is it now in the Cavs situation? Is it better to rebuild or rather to win a championship? Well, right now, the only thing the Cavs have going from is the 8th overall pick. So, if you really unload this roster, the best thing LeBron James could do for the Cavs roster and the franchise is to do a sign and trade. That way the Cavs can get some assets back, maybe draft picks, or something else to help this team build in the future. You know, if that trade happens over LeBron James or he signs somewhere else, Kevin Love is flying right out the door. But for the only way the Cavs to get any type of rebuild is that if they move more important pieces like J.R. Smith and Tristan Thompson, because contracts like that will really, in hindsight, cake up your cap space. But you know, this would be an interesting idea. And let's just say LeBron James wants to go to LA but not play for the Lakers because I think playing in that shadow of Kobe Bryant, I think it'll be just won't be detriment to LeBron's, marketability. What happens if Jerry West calls out to, I don't know, Cleveland and says, hey, we offer you Tobias Harris, 12 and 13 in this year's draft, and another first round pick for LeBron James. And since LeBron wants to come to LA, let him come to play for the Clippers. Now, how does that make the Clippers a championship team? Well, I mean, you resign DeAndre Jordan and go from there. You have Danilo Gallinari. You have, Pat Beverly, whether they win in the West. No, but Jerry West is always known for finding ways to make this work. And Cleveland, if you think about it, if they make that type of deal for LeBron, you would have then 3 lottery picks this year and whatever you get back for Kevin Love. That's not a bad way to restart the franchise. Let's just play devil's advocate. And the Cavs have all 3 picks. You look at that potentially Colin Sexton at 8, Wendell Carter Jr. 8. If Trae Young somehow slides past Orlando, Trae Young at 8, or even Michael Porter Jr. at 8. Let's just say you take the point guard. Kevin Knox is there at 11, at 12, and then you take best player available at 13. Robert Williams. One of the Bridges, if they're available, Lonnie Walker Jr. You can take so many different draft choices with the Cavs at this point, and guess what? You're starting over at that point. You'll be able to get 3 young guys to go forward, and hey, on top of that, you have Tobias Harris coming back from the Clippers, so you have 3 young pieces and Tobias Harris to go forward. I think in the Cavs case, unless you know LeBron James is going to sign, it's time to blow this up. There's just no point. I mean, as long as you have LeBron James, you have a championship window until he decides he can't give it any longer. But for me, at this point, if LeBron wants to stay, you keep this thing going. Question from Mark Johnson. The big men at the top of the draft, Ayton, Bagley, Bamba should go 1, 2, 3 based on talent. But seeing how Phoenix and Sacramento drafted bigs for the last 4 years and Atlanta high on Bamba, it's like Bagley will take a fall. Do you think Sacramento, having picked big men over the last 4 drafts, will pick Bagley or will they pass? Well, the thing with Marvin Bagley is that Bagley considers himself to be the best player in the draft and would love to go play in Arizona because he's from the Phoenix area. DeAndre Ayton played college ball at Arizona, and DeAndre Ayton probably the most talented player in the draft. Luka Doncic is basically the guy, to me, that has the best player in the draft right now, all the way around because he's played against professional players and actually put up real good numbers, not 2 points a game in Europe over the EuroLeague. He was the EuroLeague's best player all season long. So there's a lot of guys in that list, and you did mention Ayton, Bagley, and Bamba. And we didn't talk about Mo Bamba, who's been flying up the draft boards because that shuttle run, that 3/4 court shuttle run over 3 seconds is still one of the best times you're going to find anywhere else. I mean, he was outrunning guards when they were doing this a couple years ago. Russell Westbrook, I think John Wall, Derrick Rose, he outran all those guys in that individual drill itself, which is ridiculous. Now, Sacramento has taken their share of big men over the last couple of years. I mean, we look at Willie Cauley-Stein, you look at Skal Labissiere, you look at Harry Giles, who didn't even play all last year. I can't pronounce the last name, Papalovich, who's no longer on the roster. So you look at the Kings' track history when it comes to big men. Yes, they drafted a ton of them, but none of those guys have the offensive ability of Ayton or Bagley in this situation. If the Kings really believe in Skal Labissiere, some people believe in him. I'm not 100% sold on him to be a starting power forward. Then at that point, there's only one player in mind that you take, which would be Michael Porter Jr., because your starting shooting guard small forward situation is really down to Vince Carter, Justin Jackson. I mean, they even thought about bringing Peja Stojakovic back if needed. But what I'm saying is the small forward is a gaping hole out there. And Michael Porter Jr. fills those needs, but I think that's only if you believe in Labissiere to be your power forward going forward. For me, I don't. I think Labissiere, Scal's a good player. He's still growing, but he doesn't have that offensive touch, that offensive punch that you get from Marvin Bagley. And if you think Bamba's your guy, that means Willie Cauley-Stein is not your answer because they tried Willie at power forward next to DeMarcus Cousins, and Willie still doesn't have an offensive game. So for me, if I'm picking at 2, I'm taking Bagley if he's available, and definitely DeAndre Ayton is available. So if Ayton and Bagley are there at 1-2, I would take either one of those guys. If somehow you're going to get one of the two. So whoever's on the board, I think I take them no matter what you have on the roster at the power forward position, because right now Marvin Bagley to me can come in this league right now and score 17 points and 10 rebounds a game. He's just that good as a rookie. Last question on this particular podcast for the day will come from Mario Drake. He has a second question. How many teams are looking at now the success of the Golden State Warriors from the draft patterns of Steph, Clay, and Draymond, and to bring in a superstar to form a dynasty? And which team is close on mirroring the same moves as Golden State? Well, the only team that is currently constructed, I think there's 2 of them, that can do what the Golden State Warriors have done are the Philadelphia 76ers and the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the Milwaukee Bucks are going to go through a situation this summer because Jabari Parker is an impending free agent. So that's going to be a little bit chink in that armor, but I think the other team that has that formula, kind of like this one, is the Sixers, because if you look at their draft history and all the picks they've had, you look at it. Embiid just signed his extension. Ben Simmons is on a rookie contract. Markelle Fultz is on a rookie contract. Dario Saric is a free agent after next summer. So you have a lot of guys and a lot of youth and talent on this team. Robert Covington is a guy that is on a nice little deal. And then remember, they still have the max cap space to go get the guy that superstar, kind of like they got with Oklahoma, with the Warriors getting Kevin Durant, and you added that final piece of the puzzle. So I think if any team on this list, it would be Milwaukee or Philadelphia. Like I said, Milwaukee has Giannis Giannis that does everything. You have Chris Middleton, who's on a nice solid contract. You have Malcolm Brogdon, who should have saw more playing time. Eric Bledsoe, which is an impending free agent, but the still thing is they have a lot of youth and talent. I don't know about the Lakers because I think the Lakers are going to be transitioning some of these young guys out because if LeBron James comes and or Paul George and other veterans. I don't think all those young guys will be on the roster. Phoenix is too inconsistent, even though like I said, they have a lot of young guys like Philadelphia. Those guys are too inconsistent, and outside of Booker, and none of those guys have star potential. Now, we'll see how Josh Jackson develops from year 1 to year 2, because it is the most important year in the NBA. Now, mind you, DeAndre Ayton does accelerate that process because DeAndre Jordan can have the same effect on the Suns as Joel Embiid had in Philadelphia if he is taken by the Suns with the number overall pick. Ayton is just that good as a rookie, and I don't see him refusing to let that number 1 pick status change and affect him and his development going forward. Wildcard question I want to says, is it too late for Michael Beasley to consider a star or an attractive piece for any NBA team? Michael Beasley will forever and always be a hired gun. He's a guy he's a professional scorer. That is all. He will never be a star. He'll never be a superstar in this league. It's kind of late. Michael Beasley never had, never put it all together. He's one of those guys that I think, the most talented players I've ever seen play in college. That 1 year at Kansas State, he was just dominating everything, double-doubles, 30 and 10s, 30 and 20s, all through that year at Kansas State. And I think he just never got it together. And, what you've learned about draft classes is that even the most talented guy in the draft class might not be the best pro because it's all about the situation. Each guy takes a situation different. You look at this year's class, Donovan Mitchell in Utah was a perfect fit. I don't know if Donovan Mitchell would make the same impact in Detroit as he would have been in Utah. Utah needed a guy who can come in and score, off the bench, a guy who could be a dual threat. And they love the talent of Mitchell. He just fit perfectly in Utah because he has that mentality. Kyle Kuzma was the same way in LA. Remember, there were 26 teams that passed on Kuzma. I think he went 26, and a couple teams passed twice, including the Orlando Magic. They passed on Kuzma, and the Lakers drafted him. And in the way the Lakers free-flowed their system, their offense, Kyle Kuzma was the perfect fit. So really, in the draft, it's all about fit. It's not about, sometimes it's about the player, but it's also about the system the player goes into. And so, for example, if you look at the guys, I think if it's best fit by system, I'll give you the top 10 and who's the best fit for each system based upon who's available. DeAndre Ayton I think Luka Doncic is the best fit for Phoenix at 1 because Tyler Ulis is the point guard, but Doncic next to Devin Booker would be just phenomenal. I like the Suns. I mean, the Suns aren't bad on the front court, but Doncic is a much better upgrade than Tyler Ulis. It makes the backcourt a lot bigger, and Doncic is a little bit better defensively than people make him out to be. And the fact that he can get to the basket, create shots, and he's not scared in big situations. Best fit Sacramento at number 2 is Michael Porter Jr. I love Bagley and the talent there, but there's a gaping hole at the small forward position that is, like I said, mandated by Justin Jackson and Vince Carter. You know, and Bojan Bogdanovic, for as good as Bogdanovic is, cannot be a full-time small forward because he doesn't have the foot speed. That's where Michael Porter Jr. comes in, the best pure scorer in the draft. It helps the Kings out of the scoring end, and you can really see a lot of three-point attempts and scoring when you have guys like Buddy Hield, Bojan Bogdanovic, De'Aaron Fox, who's one of the best clutch players in the league, and then you add on a guy like Michael Porter Jr. Best fit for the Atlanta Hawks in the draft class this year, to me, would be Jaren Jackson, Mo Bamba. I think any of the bigs, Marvin Bagley, any of those bigs that's available, whether it be, I said, Bagley, Bamba, or Jaren Jackson. Why any of those three guys? Because John Collins can either play the center position or play the 4. They have a hole at either spot. You know, Collins is athletic enough to play the 5, but he has enough ability to be a stretch 4. I didn't say too far of a stretch, but he can hit the shot from the perimeter, which will give like a guy like Bamba a little bit more space out there. And Bamba at the same time is developing a 3-point shot. So I think any of those bigs that, you know, between Bagley, Bamba, and Jackson will be the right fit in Atlanta. 4, which is the Memphis Grizzlies. The best fit for the Grizzlies would be either Luka Doncic or Marvin Bagley III. I did think Michael Porter would be a good fit, but Porter's more of a small forward. Dylan Brooks had a very, very solid rookie season, not to mention they're paying Chandler Parsons almost $25 million this year. So small forward's not exactly the biggest hole in the team, and nothing against JaMychal Green, but if you have a guy like Marvin Bagley, it makes things and changes your direction going forward. 5 in the draft is the Dallas Mavericks. Best fit for them would either be Luka Doncic or Mo Bamba. Doncic can go right in at the 2-guard spot next to Dennis Smith Jr., who had a very, very good rookie season. And Mo Bamba would solve any center questions that the Mavericks have had because they've struck out on almost every center in the last 4 years in the free agency. DeAndre Jordan, Hassan Whiteside, Tyson Chandler free agency, and they couldn't get LaMarcus Aldridge. I can continue to keep going with guys they tried to acquire and could not sign them. But the good thing is they didn't get turned down by Timothy Mozgov because they didn't offer him a contract. 6 is Orlando. The best fits for the Magic in the draft would be Trae Young, either Bamba, Trae Young or Mo Bamba. Jaren Jackson could play the 5 in the NBA, but it's kind of have a bigger version of Jonathan Isaac. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but remember, they also did use Serge Ibaka at the small ball 5 in Orlando, and it wasn't too bad. But I think since I say Jackson reminds me more of Serge Ibaka, I think the better fit in this situation would either be Trae Young, Bamba, or even, I would say even consider Jackson at this point. Nothing against Michael Porter Jr. or Wendell Carter, actually. So it's either Carter, Bamba, Jackson, or Young. Why didn't I say Michael Porter Jr. for the Magic? Because it doesn't make sense, because even if you draft him, there's still an elephant in the room, and his name is Aaron Gordon. You do not want to let Aaron Gordon go, knowing good and well that you saw what you did with Victor Oladipo. Now, mind you, I'm scared to give Aaron Gordon anything near $150 million either, so I think those two parties have to come to a side to make this work, because I don't think Aaron gets offered max anyplace else. Maybe the Phoenix Suns, maybe the Chicago Bulls, but outside of that, I can't see anybody else offering him a max deal this summer with him taking it. Number 7 in the draft is the Chicago Bulls. Best fits for the Bulls would be Wendell Carter or Michael Porter Jr. I don't think they need anything else between small forward and center. Why I say center, even though they have Robert Lopez on the roster. Lopez is one of those guys who's a nice journeyman, guys who can get you ready to go. But a guy like Wendell Carter would be the perfect fit there. And not to mention Michael Porter Jr. fills a gaping small forward hole that is led by Denzel Valentine, among other guys they've used on that roster. 8 is Cleveland. Cleveland is one of those teams that takes best player available. It is what it is. You don't know what you're doing with LeBron James, so you have to plan accordingly. So anybody on the roster at 8 should be fine for the Cavaliers, as long as those guys they consider from 8 to 12. Speaking of 8 to 12, the team with the 9th overall pick is the New York Knicks. The best fits for the Knicks based upon this draft class: Trae Young, of course, Michael Porter Jr., Wendell Carter. Those 3 are definitely guys that would make great fits. Don't forget, Mikal Bridges from Villanova makes an outstanding fit too, because he can play both the 2 and the 3. And of course, anytime that you have a chance, a guy can play both positions and play them very well, and be a 3-and-D guy, and be able to be a very good 3-point shooter, you'll be good in the eyes of anybody in New York at that point in time. And last overall, the last pick of the top 10 will be the Philadelphia 76ers, picking at 10. And the Sixers, to me, have a lot of things they need, but especially we need perimeter shooting. I like Lonnie Walker Jr. Trae Young slides that fall. Trae Young. I don't see Colin Sexton being a smart fit. Michael Porter somehow slides. Michael Porter's down there. I like I said, Lonnie Walker. I like Mikal Bridges if he's available. Anybody that can be a versatile two guy. Even Miles Bridges is okay, but like I said, if Mikal's on the board, since he's more athletic and more of a 3-and-D guy, I think he fits a lot better. Remember, the Sixers still have all this young talent, and they still got to figure out how to bring Jonah Bolden over this summer, because I think he might be even better than a lot of the guys on the roster and hasn't played 1 minute in the NBA. So, that's my mailbag session. My mailbag session, I said, was going to come up this week. Now, I will have a couple podcasts coming up the next 24 hours. I promise you. Promise. There's going to be some more of the Where Do We Go From Now series. I won't let you know what teams they are, but one of them is the Brooklyn Nets. That will be out tomorrow. Also, there'll be another podcast about where do we go from here. And the clue would be it is going to be a team out in New Orleans. So, those two podcasts will definitely be up before midnight tomorrow. I need to put some articles up on the website. I didn't forget you guys. And like I said, everybody has been so good about the website and everything else in between. Follow the show on Facebook, the show on Facebook, which would be Around the Association on Facebook page. I'm on Twitter at NBADT29. So I'll catch you guys later. So this is the Mailbag Edition. If you guys want to hear more about these, we'll do these once a week. I'll do one before the draft. Peace.